A man named Jose Antonio Fernandez spoke at a Miami-Dade County Commissioner meeting where he unfortunately expressed a view of the Second Amendment that's become rather pervasive nowadays in the far right-wing circles. So let's hear his beef, and then I want to come back and break it down.
I dare you to sell my house. You have becoming tyrants. You have becoming a corrupted government. You have destroyed my family and hundreds of family. And I said, enough. I am the people. And the time that you sell the house, my constitution gives me the right to shoot every one of you. Shoot him. Okay, public.
Mr.
I didn't know the Constitution gave him a right to shoot everybody. I'm being a dick, I know. No, he said shoot. My Constitution gives me a right to shoot every one of you, and he pointed at all the politicians sitting on that committee. Yeah, no it doesn't. The Constitution does not allow murder. It is amazing how much these guys misinterpret the Constitution. Now, you might say, well, look, that's just some schmuck who doesn't know anything, so why are we even covering this story? Actually, unfortunately, this is a view that has been expressed by the head of the Gun Owners of America, Larry Pratt. This is one of the guys who was front and center talking in the media after the Sandy Hook slaughter and after all the mass shootings. He went on CNN and argued with Piers Morgan, and that's his view. His view is, well, you know, that's what the Second Amendment is there for. If things get out of hand too much, you got to keep them politicians in check. You got to keep them in line. You know, it allows you to do what you got to do to protect your rights, if you know what I'm saying. Violence is necessary. It is what it is. So, it's funny, when there's an angry Cuban guy screaming it in a committee hearing, we realize how crazy it is. But when Larry Pratt, a white dude in a suit who's equally as crazy, says it on TV, everybody goes, oh yeah, no, constitutional argument, good point, good point. Now, the reality is, of course, that the Second Amendment, not only does it not allow you to do that, it doesn't allow for murder, obviously, it also isn't even about an individual's right to own guns, to bear arms. If you read it, it's about a militia, okay? A well-regulated militia. The word regulated is right in there, and the idiots on the right say, no, you're not allowed to regulate guns. It says regulated right in the amendment, you dipshit. What are you talking about, slappy? Of course you're allowed to regulate it. But what it's actually about is standing armies. Okay, so the Founding Fathers didn't want the armies to stay intact in times that weren't war, so they had to disband, and they were allowed to keep their guns. And it has to do with slave patrols in Virginia. It has to do with state militias, and in Virginia, they were afraid, it's a majority slave state, and they were afraid that, well, look, if we become part of the Union, the slaves are going to escape north. So, what do we do to try to get Virginia to join the Union? Well, we put in the Second Amendment and we say you could have slave patrols, the militias that patrol the border, and you're bearing arms so you could stop the slaves if they escape north. So the Second Amendment was really about preserving slavery. And he thinks, no, it's about murdering politicians today because I got into a land dispute with them. Now, let me tell you more about this clown. Here's the actual situation. Quote, a judge ruled in 2011 that Fernandez's nursery, which was on a separate property from his home, owed the county $316,000 in restitution that Miami-Dade has yet to receive. So he owes a tremendous amount of backed money, and he regularly ignored environmental regulations, as the article points out too, which added to the amount of money that he owes. And now he's mad that he has to pay what he owes like everybody else does. This is exactly like Clive and Bundy. Them blacks is welfare queens. Meanwhile, this jackass hasn't paid millions of dollars in grazing fees, so he's the welfare queen. Okay, and by the way, this guy was wearing a shirt that said, say no to Agenda 21. Oh, good Jesus. See, these conspiracy theorists, man, when people start to believe it, it gets dangerous. Okay, Agenda 21 is where they say, oh my God, the UN is going to bring in one world government, and they're going to ban cars and ban golf courses and force us into sustainable homes, which are hobbit homes. I kid you not. And they're just going to take away all of our freedoms and make life horrendous. Really? That fucking thing was signed in the early 90s, and it's a non-binding agreement, and it hasn't been implemented yet, so it's not going to be implemented. Again, it's non-binding. It's non-binding. But these fucking idiots believe it, and then they get to the point where they want to threaten people threaten politicians to their face, direct threats. Now, it just so happens, if this idiot really knew about the Constitution, he would know direct threats of politicians actually violates the First Amendment. Quote, the Miami-Dade Police Department slapped him with 13 felony charges of threatening to harm a public servant, one for each of the 12 commissioners present and for Mayor Carlos Jimenez, and a misdemeanor charge of disorderly conduct. So now you learn the hard way, son, what the Constitution really says. And not only does it not allow you to murder politicians, it also doesn't allow you to directly threaten them, which you clearly just did.